Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is a reading roundup. In my reading roundup videos, I talk about the books that I've been reading recently, and I've got quite a good stack here in front of me. These will include books that I'm reading for series September and also the 2 books that I read for Mid-Year Mystery Madness subgenre September. So let's just dive straight in. For series September, I read Death at Whitewater Church by Andrea Carter. This was to fulfill the prompt of starting a series. And this is the first book in a series about Benedicta O'Keefe, and she's called Ben. She's a solicitor, and she lives in a town in Inishowen in the north of Ireland, sorry. And this one was great. This one was atmospheric and interesting. Ben was a really interesting character. And so she's involved in the sale of a church. She's acting as solicitor for the owners of a church they're trying to sell. It's a deconsecrated church. But while there's a man there doing a survey, they discover a body in the crypt, and they think that it is the body of a man who went missing 6 years before on the day of his wedding, which was to be held in that church. So yeah, it was a good book. I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the mystery, I enjoyed the setting, and I thought this was an interesting description here. She says, O'Keefe & Co. Solicitors is my firm since I took it over from my retiring predecessor 6 years ago. It's the most northerly solicitor's office in Ireland. Last legal advice before Iceland. I've always thought I should put that on my note paper. So that's Death at Whitewater Church. And then I read Death of a Prankster by MC Beaton. This is part of the Hamish Macbeth series. This is a series that I am reading for my personal reading challenge. And I read these when I'm at chemo. And Death of a Prankster, this one was a really fun one. I quite enjoyed this one. So we have a man, Andrew Trent. He is an elderly gentleman who loves practical jokes, to the extent where it drives everybody else crazy. Like it's too much, and his family can't handle it because it's constant, it's never ending, his practical jokes. They can't stand it, but he is rich. And so when he summons his family to his home, he says that he is ill and dying, and so they all go, even though they know to expect some practical jokes. But then a body falls out of a wardrobe with a knife in it. And at first, everyone thinks that it's a practical joke because that's a joke that's been done before. But then it turns out that that was a real body, and it was Andrew Trent. And so they call Hamish Macbeth. It's in the next village over. He's covering for the village constable in that case, who is away on holidays. And but Hamish has had experience with this man before. He's been caught up in one of his practical jokes, and so he is leery when he arrives. But however, he arrives at the house to discover that they have not only moved the body, they moved it out of the room where he fell out of the wardrobe, and they put it on the billiards table, I think, but they also cleaned the room, and the murder weapon, I think, too. Like, so it was all like really mysterious. Why would you do that? In this day and age, you know very well not to do that. So yeah, this was a really fun one in the series. And then for Mid-Year Mystery Madness, I read The Vintage Caper by Peter Mayle. I read this because it is a heist slash caper novel, and I don't read those very often, but this one was really fun. It was also different. It was not quite what I was expecting. It didn't really follow how most heist or caper books go. There is a heist at the very beginning. We have a man who is a entertainment lawyer in Hollywood, and he has a very impressive wine collection. And at the very beginning of the book, there is a heist while he is away from home, and they kind of manage to get about $2 million worth of his collection. But what makes this book different is that we don't follow the crew that runs the heist. We follow the investigator that the insurance company hires to see if he can find the wine and get it back. And so that's what makes it a little bit different. However, the end of the book brings it back around and does make it a true heist story. So I'm not going to tell anymore because I don't want to give anything away if this is a book you'd like to read. He ends up going over, he gets some leads, and he ends up going over to France. And so the bulk of the story takes place in France, in Marseille and Paris and Bordeaux. Yeah. And so it's great. There's great descriptions of France and those cities. There's great descriptions of food and wine. And so if you're into that, you might enjoy this one. I really did. I also read the next up in the Slough House series. This is Mick Herron's Spook Street. This one was good too, because this one focused on River Cartwright's grandfather, who was also an MI5 agent, and a really good one too. However, he is getting older now and starting to, what's the word for it? He is starting to experience some dementia and is concerned that MI5 might have some problems with him revealing information he shouldn't reveal, that kind of thing. And then a body ends up in his house, and he has disappeared along with River Cartwright, his grandson. And so of course MI5 is involved, and Slough House is also involved to try and find where River is and what's going on. And this was a really good one in the series. Again, I just quite enjoy this series a lot. And then also for series September, I read Fool's Gold by Caro Peacock. This one was to read a book from a series that was started more than a year ago, and this is the penultimate book in the series, but I have not read a book from this series for 5 years, because the last time I read a book in this series was in 2017. So it's about time I finished this series. So Fool's Gold starts with Liberty Lane. She's a private detective in Victorian England. This is 1841, and she's on her honeymoon with her husband in Cephalonia, and they meet some characters that they end up getting that they meet again in London. And so they meet Mr. Vickery, who is this mysterious man who has become the guardian of a boy called George. And he claims that George is the son, the illegitimate son of Lord Byron. And the boy really does look like Lord Byron, so most people believe this story. And so Mr. Vickery wants to take George to London, introduce him into society, and etc. So back in London, Mr. Vickery comes to Liberty Lane because George has been receiving some letters. There is a woman who claims that she's his mother and wants to meet him, and George, of course, wants to try and protect, Mr. Vickery wants to try and protect George. And then it gets crazy from there, and there is a body and everything. And so this one was pretty good. This one wasn't my favorite in the series, but it was pretty good. I did enjoy coming back and seeing these characters again. And so yeah, it was pretty good. There was this great quote here that I marked. So her and her husband haven't found a place to live together yet. So for now he's moving into her place, and he's moving his stuff in. Robert and his books. 3 tea chests of them arrived one day with a note from the carrier saying the rest would be delivered shortly. Robert pointed out that in the marriage service he'd endowed me with all his worldly goods, and most of them were books. I approve. And then the second book that I read for Mid-Year Mystery Madness was from this collection, 10 Great Mysteries, edited by Howard Haycraft. And here, I'll show you this page. I read The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. This is a hard-boiled mystery, and I don't read hard-boiled mysteries very much. This was first published in 1929, and reading this book just reminded me why it is that I don't read hard-boiled mysteries. I didn't really like it very much. It's set in San Francisco, and the main character is Sam Spade. He's a private detective, and he gets hired by this woman who tells a story of her sister going missing, you know, going away with this guy, and they were in New York, and as she's discovered that her sister is here in San Francisco with this guy, and she wants their help to find her sister and get her away from this man. And then his partner goes to follow this man in order to see if he can lead him to the sister, and both the man and the partner are killed that evening. So, I mean, it's a classic of the genre, and I'm glad that I read it, but hard-boiled is just not for me. I don't enjoy the moral ambiguity of these stories. I also don't really like the anti-hero, so Sam Spade is definitely an anti-hero, and I don't really like that. There was also just lots of words that I didn't understand. I spent a lot of time being confused in this story, just because of the phrases and the words that they use. So here's an example. I don't know how come he left that shelter, but they got him once in New York for knocking over a row of Stuss games. His twist turned him up, and he was in a year before Fallon got him sprung. A couple of years later, he did a short hitch in Joliet for pistol whipping another twist that had given him the needle. But after that, he took up with Dixie Murnahan and didn't have any trouble getting out whenever he happened to get in. There is so much I don't understand. I don't know what a twist is. I don't know what a Stuss game is. I don't know what it means when he said he gave him the needle. There was so much of that I did not understand. And then it actually made me think of, hilariously, it made me think of that episode of Seinfeld. It's from the Little Kicks episode, where George tries to bootleg a movie. And Kramer comes into Jerry's apartment and he says, "Jerry, George got arrested." And Jerry says, "What?" And Kramer says, "He went down at the Beekman. He tried to land, but they cheesed him." And Jerry says, "Oh, now I see." So that's what it made me think of when I read that kind of thing. I don't understand what any of that's about. Okay, and then I read No More Dying by David Roberts. This is from his Lord Edward Corinth and Verity Brown series. And I had to read this because for Series September, one of the prompts is to finish a series, and this is the penultimate book in the series. So I had to read this one so I could read the last one for that prompt. This is a series that, it's funny, I enjoy this series, and yet there are times when I really dislike some of the characters in this series. What I like about this series is the time period. It's set in the 30s, and so we get a lot of some of that really interesting political stuff that is happening as a lead up to World War II. So Lord Edward Corinth is the brother of a duke, and early in the series, in the first book in the series, he meets Verity Brown, who is a communist, and with very, very, very strong opinions about things. And she's also a reporter. And so the two of them have kind of a tempestuous relationship, but they end up solving murders together. She goes over to report what's happening in Spain, for example, and anyway, so there's a lot of just really fascinating historical stuff, political stuff, but Verity herself just drives me crazy sometimes, and she does it again in this book. So in this book, it's February 1939, and they know that Britain will soon be at war. The Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, is still trying to appease Hitler. And MI5 learns that an enemy agent has been dispatched to England to assassinate Churchill. And they need to find out who that agent is. And Lord Edward Corinth is asked to investigate, and he begins inquiries at Cliveden, the Astor's country house in Buckinghamshire, notorious as the headquarters of those who are prepared to go to any lengths to avert war. And a body is found while he is there. So this one was pretty good, but once again, Verity, some of the things that she does just drives me absolutely crazy. So for example, she demands that Edward trust her and not ever keep any secrets from her. But she's not willing to do the same thing for him, and that just drives me crazy. So there's a part at the end of the book where she keeps a big secret from him and doesn't tell him what she's doing, and not for any really good reason either. It's probably just the author needed a way to get the climax at the end. And so, I mean, that part just drove me crazy. And then the fact that Edward doesn't call her out on it also drives me crazy. Yeah, so anyway, so this is one of those series where I keep reading it because I really enjoy the history, even though sometimes the character drives me crazy. And then also for series September, I read The Legend of Sleepy Harlow by Kylie Logan. This is the third in the League of Literary Ladies Cozy Mystery series, and I read this for most recently started series, the prompt of the most recently started series. And so this one is just really fun. This is a series set on an island on Lake Erie, and it's a really small island with only one town, and our main character is Bee. She runs a B&B on the island. They get a lot of tourists on this island, and this one is set in October, which is really fun. The literary ladies have chosen to read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, and the guests that she currently has staying with her at her B&B are members of the Elkhart Ghost Getters Society, and they're there to try and film some ghost activity at specific places on the island. So this one was just really fun. It was really atmospheric, very fall. It was the perfect time of year to read it. Really enjoyable. She's helping her friend, because her friend Kate, who is another member of the League of Literary Ladies, is under suspicion of the murder. One of these ghost getters gets killed at Kate's winery, and so of course she is under suspicion. And this one was just really fun. I quite enjoyed this one. And then finally I read The Queen's Christmas by Karen Harper. Isn't this cover great? So I wouldn't normally read a Christmas book this early, but this was the next up in the series, and this is another series that I'm reading for my personal reading challenge. I read it when I'm at chemo, and so this was the next up in the series, and again, this one was really fun. This is a historical mystery series featuring Elizabeth I, and in this one, she wants to give her cat, Lady Cat Ashley, an old-fashioned Christmas. It is 1564, and so they're doing the 12 days of Christmas and all of the old traditions, the Yule log and the Lord of Misrule and all of it. And that was something that I really enjoyed about the book, was reading about some of these Christmas traditions, which was just really fun. So anyway, they are in the midst of that when one of the Queen's kitchen staff is found dead, and he's found dead in the kitchen. His job is the dresser, so he's the one who, you know, when they make these fancy dishes like Peacock, for example, when the dish is cooked, he's the one who dresses it, so puts the feathers back on and adds the garnishes and all of that stuff. He is found dead, and he has, like, he's been, the peacock has been draped over him, and peacock feathers stuffed in and stuff. So it's obviously very unusual. And again, this one was a great one in the series that I really like this series. I'm having a lot of fun reading it. Kind of really close together, the whole series close together. So there you have it. That's what I've been reading recently. Here is an updated look at my bingo card. I'm doing not badly, although I need to get a move on if I'm going to finish the last 5 books before the end of September. Anyway, have you read any of these books? I would love to chat with you about them in the comment section down below, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.